2023 will be known as the year that the tourism industry in Europe and the Middle East finally returned to pre-pandemic levels. That's the projection the UN World Tourism Organization made last week as global tourism operators eye the return of more travelers. But many parts of the world remain cautious due to the conflict in Ukraine and also rising inflation, which might keep some people from traveling. But if 2022 was the year that travelers began venturing out with the easing of COVID-19 restrictions, this year is set to be marked by the return of mass tour groups and their demand for luxury items and vacations. After enforcing an almost 3-year zero-COVID policy that locked in the world's largest source of tourists, China is now reopening its doors to the outside world. The UNWTO also expects demand from U.S. travelers for overseas trips to remain high. In 2022, a strong U.S. dollar and a weaker euro saw an influx of American holidaymakers to Europe. But it might still be a few years before global tourism revenues go past the $1.7 trillion mark of 2019. And to further discuss global tourism post-COVID-19, joining me now from London is Virginia Messina. She is the Senior Vice President of the World Travel and Tourism Council. And from Dubai is Sinan Köseoğlu. He is the Vice President of Abu Dhabi National Hotels. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Virginia, according to the UNWTO, international tourist arrivals could reach 80 to 95% of pre-pandemic levels this year. What does that mean for the sector?
Indeed, I think what we are seeing is, despite all the challenges that we're facing globally, like an unprecedented inflation and energy prices rise, what we're seeing is consumers want to keep traveling. So the World Travel and Tourism Council recently launched its latest consumer trends report, where we're seeing that people are willing to spend more than they did in 2019 for travel. They want to take more sustainable travel options. But the reality is international arrivals are up. In 2021, we saw really strong international activity, and we're about to publish the results of 2022, where again we do believe we will be reaching and in some cases surpassing 2019, which was of course one of the best years our industries had.
So Sinan, will every country get its fair share from this rebound? I mean, which regions will see a stronger recovery?
Well, not, of course, to each region. The reason why, because of political situations, or for instance, Asia is suffering a lot. The reason why they didn't ease the COVID precautions. And the second one is East Europe, for instance, because of the Ukraine war, and they are having the difficulties. But despite that, Middle East, if you can see the figures, is rising drastically and almost reached the 2019 figures. And following the Europe, America, and Africa. So that's why those are, basically almost reached the 2019 figures already.
So, Virginia, you've mentioned this year uncertainties of the global economic outlook and rising inflation has many worried. So what will be the main motivation for tourists looking to travel this year? I mean, which factors would be the most influential ones?
I think, again, people want to go away. Obviously, the pandemic kept people in their home places, and they want to go out. They want to connect. They want to see new places. We saw during the pandemic, or initially in the recovery, preference for outdoors and sort of rural spaces, whereas now we're seeing tourists go back to cities, go back to sun and beach destinations. So we are definitely seeing very, very strong preferences to do that. As I said, sustainability is top of mind. So they want to make sure that when they're traveling responsibly, and they are taking sustainable travel options. So spend is up, as I said. So it's really, really, really positive that we're seeing this. Although just to what my colleague was saying, it is definitely happening at different paces. We have seen China reopen recently, and I think that's going to be really positive.
But as I've read, correct me if I'm wrong, travelers are expected to travel more and spend less. How is that going to play out?
Yeah, sure. I don't think that's what we are seeing. What we are seeing is that despite the challenges, they're still willing to spend more in travel. So they're going to be spending more in their trips than they were spending back in 2019. Obviously, we know inflation is affecting every single industry, and it has affected, in some cases, travelers. But what we are seeing is, for example, in the hotel industry, the nights are staying, the stays are longer. So we went from a sort of 3 to 4 night average to an almost 9 to 12 nights average, because we're also seeing this trend of combination of business and leisure. So the travel spend is up. People want to spend and want to invest more in travel.
So, Sinan, data shows that the countries with record jumps in 2022 were Serbia, Romania, Türkiye, Latvia, Portugal, Pakistan, Morocco, and France. I mean, why have these countries experienced a significant upward trend? I mean, what did they offer differently than other tourist destinations?
There are multiple reasons, I can say. The France, to be on the basically you can put France on the side. The rest is they have the oldest natural basically the treasures, and then plus the most important is the local currency effect, because of they have the cheaper options compared to the other places with the vast variety. France is one of the big machines, so that's why they got their own share again. But those are like in Turkey, for instance, we almost catch the 2019 basically the figures. It's only 3% less than the 2019. It's a big jump, and others as well. As mainly it's affordable, and you can see the variety of the tourism, and plus the most important one is it's more flexible during the COVID and after the COVID as well.
So, Virginia, how has the Middle East experienced the strongest relative increase as arrivals climbed to 83% of pre-pandemic numbers? I mean, how has a weakening euro and Turkish lira enabled the region to reach a strong rebound?
Absolutely. I think we've definitely seen very strong activity, but this has also been led by strong support from the governments to the tourism sector. So, for example, in Turkey, we see improved connectivity because of the Istanbul airport. So that has obviously facilitated international travel flows, although domestic was really, really important in the recovery, domestic spend. But we're now seeing international travelers coming back. We're seeing that support that the government has been given to the sector in different forms. So it is really positive. We recently did an analysis of 82 cities, and Istanbul and both Antalya are really, really close to 2019 levels and showing some strong international activity.
Yeah, you say it's positive, but how quickly could international travel return to its pre-pandemic levels? Do you have any suggestions?
I think it will probably surpass it by the end of this year because it's very close, as it said, like only 3% below 2019 levels when it comes to Istanbul, and Antalya in some cases has already surpassed 2019 levels.
So, Sinan, will the gap between more privileged groups and budget travelers, which kind of emerged during the pandemic, be filled this year?
Yeah, this year, if you will see the more privilege and the middle income, the combination, we can see the middle income groups are start to traveling more this year, and then it will be of course consciously, they were like basically to 37% to gapping those, those gap. It will be difficult, but on the other end, we are expecting to be more travels. So I hope and expect it's a turbulence year, though we can have the close this year with the successfully with the middle income groups and the travelers more in the side. And China, it is important for this because they are more in the middle income groups. Yes. I can say that.
So, Virginia, where do Africa and Americas as well as Australia stand in this recovery trend?
I think we have seen most countries have reopened their borders now. So, for example, Australia is now also allowing their nationals to travel outbound, which is really positive. They are an important market as well internationally. China will definitely play a really, really critical role when it comes to international travel this year. And when it comes to Africa or other regions that perhaps have been slower to recover, we are hoping to see improved connectivity to these regions, which obviously was affected during the pandemic, and hoping to see some strong international activity. So America has had a really, really strong activity from the beginning, and it has been showing one of the strongest recovery since 2021.
So Sinan, is this going to be a better year for global tourism? What do you think? And what are the potential risks that could derail this upward trend?
I mean, definitely it will be a better year, I can say, and at least it will be the same. But the problem is, of course, is not the same growth it will be, because if you can, see from since 2019, the people, I mean, they are hungry to travel, and then this basically affected in 2021 and 2022 results in positively. So now is the economic downturn, sanctions in Russia, war. And then above all that, the China's zero COVID strategy will be among the factors, the weighting on the industry. So that's why these are all I can see the threats for the successful 2023. And we are expecting the Chinese will be back in the middle of the year. It's all depending on the Chinese, I can say, for the success of the year.
All right, Sinan and Virginia, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.